It is time to talk travel. Welcome to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. On today's show, we are going to be talking about Virgin Voyages, Mediterranean cruise lines, and we are headed to Mexico, Puerto Vallarta specifically. Let's start the show. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, contains travel deals, promotions, and offers that may be time sensitive. All offers and information were accurate when the show aired. Travel deals and offers change constantly and are capacity controlled and subject to change without notice.
Helping you plan your next vacation. This is the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call us now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Here's Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
The weekend, which means it is time to talk travel. Welcome to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. Hello there, I am Patrick Wiscombe. Mark Faldmo will be here in the studio here in just about 30 seconds. The entire purpose of this show is to help you plan and book your next vacation. And if you have no idea where to go, Mark and I will be giving you some ideas of maybe where you should consider going on your next vacation. And this show is presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time to stop and listen. As I mentioned at the very start of the show, we're talking about Virgin Voyages, Mediterranean cruises, Puerto Vallarta. But before we get to those specific topics, let me bring in my co-host and friend, Mark Faldmo. I don't like this trend that we're on that I just don't even talk to you during the week, like the last 3 weeks. And then we jump in the studio together and we have to quickly catch up and plan the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to get back to talking more regularly.
Absolutely.
It's been busy, though.
It has been busy. We're in wave season right now.
Traditionally in the travel world, wave season is January, February, and March. And we can sell up to sometimes a little bit more of 50% of all of our total sales happen in those 3 months. So it's a busy time in the travel world.
Let's get to the travel news headlines, and then we'll get to Virgin Voyages. I saw a news story that Florida has set an all-time tourism record. Now, you and I were there last year. I get it.
Yep.
Florida is awesome.
Yeah, it is. Florida has lots of advantages. They have the theme parks. They have the top 2 busiest cruise ports. Plus, they also have the 6th busiest cruise port. Air arrivals in Florida in 2024 were up 3.1%. Room nights sold in Florida were up 1.6%. So that's over their biggest years ever. It's one of my favorite places to go. We've talked about this before, but I love the Miami area, going out to the Everglades, going out to some of those places that aren't as, I guess, touristy as some of the places in Florida. Interestingly enough, the cities that saw the most growth were Tallahassee, Panama City, and Pensacola.
Really?
So it wasn't what we'd think of Miami, Orlando, Tampa area. It was these kind of secondary cities that saw the largest growth.
It's just awesome down there.
It is.
Although you do have to get used to the humidity, or at least Patrick does.
Mark does too. Mark doesn't like humidity, so
I'm a desert rat. I saw some of the pictures coming out of Santorini, Greece, the earthquake that happened, and it's leaving, or it has left, at least the pictures that I saw, Santorini just deserted. There's some destruction for sure.
Santorini is probably one of the most popular, or at least on everyone's bucket list when they think of Greece. It's up on a hill, an island that has the whitewashed buildings with blue dome topped buildings. It is just the picturesque Greek Isle when you think of that. But they have, over the past 3 to 4 weeks, been suffering from a series of earthquakes, which actually this past week caused the first cruise ship of the year, which was the Viking Star from Viking Cruises, to cancel its port. And they also canceled, I believe, 2 other cruises to Santorini. But one thing that makes Santorini beautiful is its location. If you look at Santorini on a map from above, it's kind of a half moon island with other little islands that complete and make a full circle. Santorini is actually a caldera, the top of a volcano. So what you're seeing on Santorini is the top of an inactive volcano. But that's what makes it such a scenic island.
I hope they can recover quickly.
Yeah. Santorini is an island that's almost completely dependent on tourism. So if there's no tourism, the residents would have a very hard time making a living.
Airlines are calling for scrapping the passenger compensation proposal.
Last year, we talked about the new rule that went into effect where if a flight was canceled due to an airline issue, so not weather, the passenger either could take the rescheduling that the airline offered, or the airline had to refund them in with, I believe it's 7 days, so they can get a full refund. A few months ago, there was a new proposed rule where on top of that, for domestic delays, the airline would have to pay $200 to $300 per passenger on top of refunding them.
Oh, really?
And so that's what the airlines are asking the new administration to scrap. As a passenger, I think that sounds great. If my flight is delayed, they pay $200 just for a flight delay.
Sure.
What that's going to do is raise the cost of air travel for everyone, because they'll have to build that cost into the tickets.
Yeah, they will.
I kind of agree with the airlines here that shouldn't be an additional step. I think a full refund or taking what the airline can offer for a reschedule is fair compensation. The one thing I don't want is airlines to start increasing their fares to start covering all of these government regulations that are being proposed or going into effect.
Always in the first segment of the show is the destination of the week. And this week, we're going to take a deep dive into Virgin Voyages. Where do you want to start here?
We've talked about Virgin Voyages a few times, but I thought it'd be nice to occasionally do some segments where we kind of take a deep dive into some of the lesser known cruise lines, hotels, destinations. And so this week, I just want to start with how different they are. They have whole new lingo. They've crafted lingo. If you notice, it's Virgin Voyages. So They use the term voyage instead of cruise. You're not a passenger on Virgin Voyages. You're a sailor. Kind of their theme is rebellious luxe, which is luxury yet cheeky vibe. Vitamin C is a termed. So vitamin C is SEA, which is their wellness program. They don't have a buffet on board. They call it the galley. It's almost like food trucks. I think by far it is the best concept I've seen at sea for that kind of traditional buffet area. They really cater to those with food allergies or special food needs. My wife, she's allergic to just about everything food-wise. But in that galley, that's the first cruise she's ever been able to go to that buffet area and have almost a full selection of food she can eat. They cater to it. One of the big things is she's allergic to dairy. Desserts are always hard. She had 5 or 6 different dairy-free choices of desserts. So They really do cater to that.
Let's talk about Virgin Voyages being an adults-only cruise. So this is the anti-Disney cruise, basically.
It is. It's the perfect getaway for couples.
I know that we've already talked about the food just a little bit, but I do know that they have some interesting culinary offers. What are they?
They have 20 dining experiences on board. They don't have a main dining room, as you would think on a cruise ship. Most cruise lines have a main dining room, and you go either first or second dining, or you go anytime dining. But they have 5 or 6 main restaurants, and you eat at a different restaurant every night. One night you might go to Korean barbecue. The next night you might go to a steakhouse. They have a vegan themed restaurant, which, by the way, I did order a cauliflower steak there at their vegan restaurant.
Ooh.
It was one of the best things I've eaten. I'd say it's in one of my top 10 meals I've ever had was their cauliflower steak. It actually wasn't a sliced cauliflower steak. It was a whole thing of cauliflower. But it was very good. So
I'll have a head of cauliflower, please.
Yeah, that's something that's different and unique is you don't really eat at the same restaurant every night. Basically, they're like specialty restaurants on other cruise lines, and you rotate through these restaurants.
What about entertainment on Virgin Voyages?
It kind of breaks the traditional mold compared to other cruise lines. They really try and offer a little bit more immersive experiences, from thought-provoking shows to interactive shows. They are a little bit more edgy. Some of the shows you kind of have to watch. They might have some language in them, but generally overall, very good entertainment.
When you say the entertainment is more inclusive, you're not talking about people watching a show. They're including the audience in the show.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So they really try and immerse the audience into the show that's going on.
While we're talking about vitamin C, SEA, let's talk about some of the wellness amenities.
Yep. So again, that's their wellness program on board. They do it differently than a lot of cruise lines, like yoga programs, their detox programs. They have personalized fitness on board. Wellness is probably one of their main building blocks of their brand. They do have a traditional spa, but it goes well beyond the traditional spa.
For the fare that you pay when you get on Virgin Voyages, is all of this stuff just included? What about Wi-Fi, drinks? Are they extra charges?
So your fare includes Wi-Fi, tips and gratuities, all dining options, beverages, which is complimentary soda, water, and various other drink options, all of the fitness center classes, and all of the entertainment. So there's nothing more on board other than shore excursions, really, that you would need to pay. They do offer some upgraded experiences that you can buy, but it's different than most cruise lines, especially in the beverages where you have included soda on the ship.
Okay, so unlike other cruise lines, Virgin Voyages just includes all of that rather than getting nickeled and dimed for each one of those things.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and one thing, if you look at Virgin Voyages fares, they're very competitive to other cruise lines. Even with all of those additions, it doesn't add that much more when you compare it to other cruise line itineraries.
Oh, see, that might be very appealing to a lot of listeners then.
Yes. I think all of those inclusions plus the adults only is perfect.
Well, that's going to do it for the deep dive into Virgin Voyages. What about current Virgin Voyages promotions, Mark?
Right now, if you book by February 28th, Virgin Voyages' current promotion is 80% off the second guest, free drinks up to $300. That is for their premier alcohol and mixed drinks. So as we said earlier, you do get sodas and certain other drinks that are included. But if you want kind of that top shelf upscale experience, they will pay up to $300. And then if you pay in full, you get an additional 10% off your cruise when you pay in full.
Okay, so that means as soon as you book it, you just pay for the whole thing. You don't, I'll just call it a layaway plan.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so just pay for the whole thing and get
just pay
another
for the
10%.
whole thing. Get an extra 10% off.
How many times have you sailed with Virgin Voyages, Mark?
I've been on Virgin Voyages one time.
And it was a good experience for you?
It was very good.
Okay.
I would go again and again.
Call Mark in his office if you are interested in sailing with Virgin Voyages. Call him in his office during the break. 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717. And he will also post this on blueplanetvacations.com. When we come back, it is the hot travel deal of the week. And this week we're headed to Puerto Vallarta. So if that is on your bucket list or someplace that you want to return to, we've got a $300 savings that you'll want to cash in on. That is next when the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show continues. Alongside Mark Faldmo, my name is Patrick Wiscombe. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your weekend. We'll be right back.
If you have travel questions, they have the answers. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Call or text the show right now. 801-649-3700. 801-649-3700. We'll be right back.
This segment of Inside Travel Talk is sponsored by El Dorado Spa Resorts. Escape to Cancun's Riviera Maya with authentic, all-inclusive luxury at an El Dorado Spa Resort. To book your romantic beach getaway, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.
You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Here's Patrick and Mark.
Welcome back inside of the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. We hope you are having an absolutely terrific weekend, and thank you for allowing us to be part of your weekend by allowing us to be inside of your ears and hopefully entertain you and give you ideas of where to go on vacation next. Coming up in this segment of the show, always segment 2 of the show, we have the hot travel deal of the week. And this week we're going to Mexico, Puerto Vallarta specifically. But before we do, let's get to the travel news headlines. I thought this was kind of interesting, Mark, how Hawaii is considering, if I've got this right, an all-inclusive vacation option on the Big Island.
I get lots of calls that say they want to go to Hawaii and stay at an all-inclusive resort. And there really aren't any full all-inclusive resorts like you would think of in Mexico.
Yeah.
I think there's one that tried it a few years ago. It didn't go well. But the Hilton Waikoloa Village on the Big Island is offering an all-inclusive promotion. What this includes is when you book this room rate. So it's one of the room rates you can book. You can get just a regular room, or you can book the all-inclusive promotion. So it includes daily breakfast at their buffet, and then it includes dinner at one of their restaurants. They have 3 restaurants that you can eat at, or you can upgrade to their luau. It includes drinks at mealtime. It also includes 1 hour of the Lagoon Beach toy rental. So you can rent a kayak, stand-up paddleboard, water tricycle, or paddle boat.
Have you ever done a tricycle?
I have. Yeah.
Me too. It's harder than it looks.
Also, one thing that this offers that I think is a good perk is it includes daily self-parking, which is $50 a day if you pay for it. So it's a really good offer. Again, it is going to be more expensive than just buying the regular room rate. Right. But if you do want everything included and it to work like an all-inclusive in Mexico, this is a good option. Where
is Hilton Waikoloa? I know it's the Big Island. Is that Hilo or is that Kona?
It's in Kona. That's what you would fly into. So it's about 20 minutes from the airport. I love the Big Island.
I saw that Venice and their day tripping tourist tax has been extended through 2025.
It is. Yep. So it's extended through 2025 and they've doubled the price. So it's now
wow.
10 euros. It was 5 euros. It's now 10 euros. Anyone going into Venice for the day will have to pay this day tripper tourist tax. If you are staying at a hotel, you do not have to pay it.
And you like staying in Venice instead of trekking into Venice?
Correct. If I were visiting Venice, I would stay on the island. There's nothing like Venice in the evening.
Let's get to the hot travel deal of the week, which is Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. Let's first talk about the areas of Puerto Vallarta that you like to stay, and then we'll get to the actual deal.
Every destination has its unique zones or areas of the city to stay. And so when traveling to Puerto Vallarta, there are several that you can choose from. In Puerto Vallarta, the main area where people stay is the hotel zone. The hotel zone is kind of best for convenience, and it's where all of the all-inclusive resorts are. It's kind of right in between the airport and the downtown zone. And then the downtown zone is where I like to stay, just because I like going to the Malecon. I like everything there is to do in the downtown zone. I would say for first-time visitors, the downtown zone is probably the best place to stay.
So stay out of the hotel in this case. The hotel
out
zone.
of the hotel zone. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's also the Marina Vallarta. That's right next to the airports where all the cruise ships come into. But there's some pretty nice all-inclusive resorts there. And this is where a lot of the resorts for families are based. The next zone is the Zona Romantica. So the romantic zone, which I don't necessarily like to stay there, but I like to go visit there because it's probably the most traditional. You'll get there and just feel like you're in that colonial Mexico. Probably my next favorite place to stay is I would call it the South Beach area. This is the area that's kind of on the other side of downtown, but it has the best beaches. It has hotels like the Hyatt Ziva that we've talked about, that is just kind of on its own little bay, its own little secluded beach. And so this is the area that has the best beaches in Puerto Vallarta.
So let's get to the actual hot travel deal of the week. What are the promotions that we have for listeners this week?
So right now, book by February 27th, and you can save up to $300 for trips to Mexico, Puerto Vallarta in particular here that we're talking about. And this includes 5 nights hotel, round-trip airfare from Salt Lake City, and this also includes round-trip transfers from the airport to the hotel. Lately, I've kind of only been looking at 4-star and above hotels because those prices have been so good. The Crystal Puerto Vallarta starts at $1,089 for airfare, 5 nights hotel from Salt Lake City, and the transfers between the airport and hotel. And then if we bump up to a 5-star hotel, there's a few that we'll go over here. But the Iberostar Selection Playa Mita starts at $1,329 per person. Now, this is an area that we did not talk about. It's about an hour kind of north of the airport. So it's a ways away from the airport, but it's kind of in the newer, it's kind of an upscale area for vacations in the Puerto Vallarta area. And then the Villa Premier Boutique Hotel, 5-star boutique. There's 72 rooms, so it's small, located in the downtown area. It's the closest hotel to the Malecon, which I really like. It starts at $1,739 per person. And this date, I can't remember if we mentioned that or not. It's May 7th, but we can also look at other dates on that.
What was the first one where you had to book by what did you say, February 27th?
Correct. Yeah. Book by February 27th to get the up to $300 off.
How many times have you actually physically been in Puerto Vallarta?
So including times when I've stopped on the cruise, probably 30 or 35.
I was expecting you to say like, I don't know, 5. 30 to 35. Wow.
Yeah, quite a bit. I love Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Take advantage of those offers. Call Mark in his office during the break. Just get the conversation started. There's no obligation. 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717. Or you can also go to blueplanetvacations.com. When we come back after the break, it is time for the infamous Just Cruising segment. And this week we're going to the Mediterranean. Stick around. If you've always wanted to go to that part of the world, that's what we're talking about next. And we've got some awesome deals for listeners this week. Thank you so much for listening. We will be right back.
They've literally traveled millions of miles to answer your travel-related questions. Yeah, they really have. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Patrick and Mark will be back after these messages.
Inside Travel Talk is brought to you by AMA Waterways. From castles and capitals to vistas and villages, visit some of Europe's most remarkable sites and cities. The award-winning and family-owned river cruise line, Elmo Waterways, offers a wide variety of unforgettable itineraries along Europe's iconic rivers, perfectly suited to every traveler's interests. Whether you are passionate about music, history, architecture, or enjoy the finer things in a Europe river cruise on Elmo Waterways is the gift that keeps on giving. To set out on your own river cruise journey, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.
Okay, we're back. Thank you so much for listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. Coming up in the remaining 30 minutes, we will be talking about Royal Caribbean having a new home port in San Diego. Cruising in the Mediterranean, that will be the cruise deal of the week. Let's get back to the show. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by blueplanetvacations.com, contains travel deals, promotions, and offers that may be time sensitive. All offers and information were accurate when the show aired. Travel deals and offers change constantly and are capacity controlled and subject to change without notice.
Now, back to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. America's best travel advisors. Hit us up right now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700. And check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Here's Patrick and Mark.
All aboard for the infamous Just Cruising segment on the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. My name is Patrick Wiscombe, in studio with Mark Faldmo. Coming up in this final segment of the show, we're going to be talking about Royal Caribbean and their brand new ship that's going to home port in San Diego. That's good news. Cruising in the Mediterranean, that will be the cruise deal of the week, and how to find the most popular cruise line in your state. That's coming up in this segment, and it's only about cruise news. So let's go ahead and start right there. Mark, Royal Caribbean is just announced that they're going to home port one of their ships in San Diego. What details do we have on that, though?
This will be the third ship on the West Coast for Royal Caribbean. 2026 and 2027 winter season, they will move the Serenade of the Seas to San Diego. It will run 3, 4, and 7-night destinations and include a new port for Royal Caribbean, which will be La Paz, Mexico. So this won't be the typical Mexican Riviera cruise. It'll have that additional unique port of La Paz, Mexico. This year, Royal Caribbean added the Navigator of the Seas and Ovation of the Seas. So this will be the addition of a third ship on the West Coast for Royal Caribbean.
A new Royal Caribbean ship, Legend of the Seas, is now for sale to the public. Do we know the itineraries?
Just a few days ago, they put their brand new ship, the Legend of the Seas, itineraries up for sale, and it will spend the summer of 2026 sailing the Mediterranean from Barcelona, and then it will move to Fort Lauderdale for the winter season of 2026, where it will do Caribbean cruises. So if you're interested in sailing on the newest, biggest, and best that Royal Caribbean has, this is a ship for you.
And that is one of the things that you and I love to do, just jump on new cruise ships. Got that new cruise ship smell.
Yes.
I thought this was kind of cool, Mark, that you can track all of your cruises in one place with the Cruise Globe.
This is a unique app that someone's come up with called thecruiseglobe.com. And you can go in and put all of your past cruises back to 2015 in, and it will show you a map on the world of every cruise port and itinerary that you have. All of these ships have satellite data, so it actually tracks the exact path that your cruise ship went.
Did it really? Oh, see, okay, I'm going to have to do that then, because that sounds like a lot of fun, just to see the lines of where we went.
Sometimes, Google has a thing everywhere you went this year. And so Delta also has a thing. So I like to see that where I've been, but it doesn't track any of the cruises really. So this is an interesting app to do that. There are a lot of people that actually do go out and purchase professionally done framed photos of their cruise itinerary.
Okay.
And so this is kind of an alternate to doing that. I am going to do this and see what my map shows up. Again, they have all data going back 10 years to 2015. So it will only have a small portion of my cruises, but it'll be interesting to see that.
This was kind of interesting that you can actually find out what the most popular cruise line in your state is. Because we're broadcasting from Salt Lake City, let's start with Utah. What is Utah's most popular cruise line?
As with most of the country, Utah's most popular cruise line is Disney Cruise Line.
Okay, that makes sense.
This was actually a survey study done by USA Today. West Coast US is Princess Cruises. And then you kind of have the middle and northern part of the US, which is Disney Cruise Line. And then Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, the Carolinas is Carnival Cruise Line. In Florida, it's Celebrity Cruise Line.
Whoa, Celebrity.
In New York, it's MSC Cruise Line. And then in Georgia, New Jersey, and Delaware, it's Virgin Voyages. I know I left a couple states out of that, but those cruise lines cover the survey. I find it interesting.
Oh, wow.
Royal Caribbean did not show up as a favorite in the state, as an all-out favorite.
Well, especially in Florida with Icon of the Seas, man, there's a lot of Royal Caribbean ships down there.
Norwegian didn't show up on this. Disney has the bulk of the country, and then Carnival and Princess are next. And a couple states that have Virgin, Celebrity, and MSC.
Oh, interesting. That is not anything that I thought you were going to say. I guess you could say Celebrity is owned by Royal Caribbean.
Correct. Yeah, but they are their own distinct brand.
Yeah, they are. Always in this segment of the show, at the bottom of the hour, we always have the cruise deal of the week. And this week we're going to the Mediterranean. And what offer do we have for listeners this week?
So this is on Princess Cruise Lines. They have their standard 40% off the cruise fare, free cabin upgrades, and third and fourth guests free in the same cabin. But on top of that, for Mediterranean cruises, book by February 28th, they're giving up to an additional $800 instant saving discount and deposits of $99 on select voyages.
So you're saying that you're going to be very busy this week. Listeners have to take advantage of these offers between now and like the 25th through the 28th.
Correct. Yeah.
Whoa.
So it's close in. We have from today, Saturday, February 22nd, we do have a week left to book those. So these are on Princess's newest ships, which are sailing over in the Med right now. You're not only getting pretty much brand new ships, but you're getting very interesting itineraries.
You, me, and our wives, we like cruising on the newest cruise ships. I was looking at Sun Princess. That's a nice ship. That's a way nice ship.
It is. And in the Med, it has some very good pricing. So on the Sun Princess, they have a 7-day Western Mediterranean cruise that sails between Barcelona and Rome. It visits Gibraltar. So that's a stop I've not been to. But then it goes to Marseille, Genoa, Italy, port that would be closest to Florence and Pisa, and then ends in Rome. And on August 9th, so this is in the summertime, and I'm just going to give the balcony cabin on this. Starts at $1,609 per person for that 7-day cruise.
Wow.
The reason on that, the inside cabin is only like $200 a person less. And so for that price difference, you might as well go in a balcony.
But it is available, just in case.
It is available if you want that lower inside price. There's also an ocean view price in between that.
Now, when you talk about ocean view, I won't say it's called a porthole, but basically that's what you're talking about. Some kind of a porthole or picture window.
Or picture window.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And that's an ocean view. And then the cruise that I think I find most interesting is on the Majestic Princess. This is a 10-day Greece and Turkey cruise. So it sails between Athens and Rome. This one's a little bit closer in. It's on June 20th, but it sails from Athens, goes to Mykonos in Greece, goes to Kusadasi in Turkey. So from there, you can go to Ephesus, which I think is one of the most fascinating archaeological sites you can visit in that whole region. Then it goes to Rhodes in Greece, goes to Crete in Greece, goes to Kataklon, which is near Olympia. So that would be the port where you can go see where the first Olympics were held. Goes to Valletta in Malta, which we've talked about before. That
Yeah,
I think
you
is one of the most fascinating ports. Sailing into Valletta, Malta is amazing. That's probably one of the top 5 cruise experiences that you can have, I think, just because of the scenery and how Valletta is laid out. Then it goes to Naples, go to Capri, go to Pompeii. You can go eat at the restaurant where the very first pizza was made.
I would do that.
In Naples, Italy, and then ends in Rome. So it's a 10-day cruise. Balcony cabins start at $17.99 per person.
This sounds like very, very port intensive.
It is. Yeah. So it only has 2 sea days in 10. You're in port every other day.
How much was that again? Did you say $17.99?
Yeah, $17.99 for a balcony cabin.
Wow.
Again, there are insides available. They're about $200 a person, less than that. But for this, sailing into Malta, I think the balcony cabin is worth it just for that experience.
This might seem like a strange question, but what side of the ship for this cruise would you be on? The port side, the left side, or starboard side, the right side?
You would want to be on the starboard side for the sail into Valletta, Malta.
Okay.
That's where all the scenery is. When they sail out, it'll be on the other side of the ship. But, I think the sail in is the time when I guess you'd say it's most magical when you're sailing in.
You have raved about Malta for as long as we've been doing the show, over a year and a half now.
Yeah, I think of all the cruise ports I've been to, that is definitely in the top 5 of my favorite cruise ports.
Well, and I mentioned that you've done 150 cruises before. And so if it gets your attention, 150 plus cruises is a lot for anybody. But what I'm saying is, if it got your attention, just do it the way Mark did it. Because if he was moved, just do it.
Yeah. And, in this itinerary, again, Kusadasi is also one of my favorites, going to Ephesus. I loved right there by the port in Kusadasi. They had a bazaar. Those Turkish bazaars are pretty interesting. I got a couple boxes of Turkish Delight. That was my souvenir from there. But so this itinerary has one port in my top 5 and one port probably in my top 15 that I've been to. So it's a very good itinerary. And also starting in Athens, go in a few days before and see Athens. My favorite experience there is just going to a street cafe and getting a gyro. Nothing like a good Greek authentic gyro.
Well, I know what we're going to do, Nikki and I. Man, we are loading up on the cruises. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, this week has lots of cruises. There's even a little bit more to come in the next segment.
All right, more cruises coming up in the next segment. We've also got Mark's travel tips, and we're going to talk about NCL accepting PayPal for cruise payments. That's kind of cool. And we'll talk about the top 5 cruise deals, good Mexican Riviera and Alaska cruises. The goodness just continues in the next segment. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your weekend. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast, a radio show. Call Mark in his office if you want to book any of these vacations. 888-718-7717. 888-718-7717. We will be right back.
Explore your world. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now. 801-649-3700. 801-649-3700. We'll be right back.
This segment of Inside Travel Talk is sponsored by Starkippers. For over 30 years, Starkippers has offered unique, authentic tall ship sailing experiences featuring creative itineraries throughout the Mediterranean, Caribbean, and Central America. To book your unique Starkipper sailing adventure, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or BluePlanetVacations.com.
They'll help you plan and book your next vacation. Yeah, really. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700. And now, here's Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Welcome back inside of the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. My name is Patrick Wiscombe, alongside Mark Faldmo. Coming up in this final segment of the show, we have got the top 5 cruise deals that we're just going to mention. We're extending the cruise deal of the week, or the infamous Just Cruising segment, into this section of the show. And we're also going to be talking about NCL, Norwegian Cruise Line Holding, is now going to accept PayPal for cruise payments. So that is not something that we have seen quite yet. In fact, Mark, let's just go ahead and start there. As we come back from break, NCL has announced that they are going to take PayPal for cruise payments. When did that start?
That just barely started. And so that's for Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings brands, which is Norwegian Cruise Line, Oceania Cruises, and Regent Seven Seas. They did some testing on this and found that customers using PayPal get a 43% faster checkout than those using some of the traditional methods of checkout.
So friction creates delay.
Yeah. And, I think last week or maybe the week before we talked about, I think it was JetBlue, they're starting to take Venmo. A lot of travel companies don't take these kind of alternate payment methods. So I think this is a good thing for travel brands to start taking PayPal, Venmo, Google Pay, Apple Pay, things like that. Just making it easier is a good thing.
Apple Pay, I'm a huge fan of. There is just something magical about sending money through air. It's just amazing.
In the past, and I guess this segment we talk about travel tips, I always would have Google Pay or Apple Pay added to your phone when you're traveling. Make sure your phone is secure. So, it's behind a password or some type of biometric ID. Right. I lost my wallet on an airplane.
Really?
And I landed in New York. I don't know what happened. I walked off the plane. I did the airplane dance, which I call it, which is check for my keys, wallet, and, all of the important things. And I was walking off. I didn't see it. I went back to my seat. No wallet.
Really?
So I had no money, no credit cards. I did have my phone. Luckily, I knew my credit card number. And so I set up a Google Pay account with that. I got that all taken care of. I had the Uber app on my phone so I could get to where I needed to get. But Google Pay saved me. I do like these alternative payment. Without that, I wouldn't have been able to check into my hotel.
Yeah, you would have been hosed.
I would have, it would have not been fun.
I saw a survey that Gen Z does not trust AI for booking travel. Gen Z is so tech savvy, but I can see that AI could go horribly wrong.
And I've got some stories about this. AI is a great tool, especially for travel advisors. I use it every day. I've had some interesting stories. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, we had a person come into the office and they said, "We found this perfect trip and here's what we want to do." And I looked at it and I was like, "How did you come up with this?" He's like, "Oh, I just said I want to do a trip to England and Scotland in AI and I had it plan me out." I suppose I could put that together, but it would have been a miserable vacation with the amount of travel AI had them doing. One of the things they told AI is they wanted to see lots of castles. I had like 6 different castles a day. And it was the craziest itinerary I've ever seen.
It probably didn't make logistic sense.
It didn't. And so there was another study done. I think we talked about this last year where someone said, "I want to take a family vacation to Mexico, plan it out."
Yeah, I remember
and
this.
It was like to Mexico, Cancun area. And it had them staying in 4 different places, and 2 of them were adult only hotels that AI recommended. So there is a place for AI in travel. It can give you some good ideas, but I would not rely on it. That's another reason why to use a professional travel advisor. Some of these AI tools are great, but they don't know. AI has all of this information and it just kind of spits it out and hopes it's good. Going back to that main story, the Gen Zs, which are, I think, 18 to 35-year-olds right now, just don't trust AI for much right now.
So call Mark.
Yeah.
Call Mark is what we're saying.
Call Mark no matter what generation you're a part of, and we can help.
Let AI plan something for you, but let Mark check your work. If you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you know that Mark and I love traveling on trains, and we have the biggest train travel trends. Wow. Say that 10 times. For 2025, what are the train travel trends?
The trend is there's more and more of these train companies operating all around the world. There's a new train in UK, the Belmont Express, which operates 2 to 3 night train tours with sleeper cars. It's a luxury train that goes around the UK. There's some new additions to the Orient Express, which we've talked about. Now, both of these first two options are in the luxury category, so they're very, very luxurious. In fact, off air, we were talking about this new car that Orient Express has added, which is where a person buys the whole car, and it has a bedroom, a big bathroom, a sitting room with a fireplace. It's probably pretty pricey, but if you can afford it, it's probably amazing.
That'd be awesome.
Also launching in 2025 that we've talked about, the Dolce Vita Orient Express, which is an Italian train tour. I think last week we talked about the night train. There's actually several of these night trains starting around Europe. There's one starting in Italy called the Espresso train, which is a night train to get people from Rome to the Italian Alps. And then further away outside of Europe, most of what we've talked about is in Europe. We've talked a lot about the Rocky Mountaineer, which has Canadian travel as well as Southern Utah train travel.
And you were on it in August of last year, 24.
24, yeah.
And you loved it. It was 2 days.
Yeah, I went from Denver to Moab. I would do it again in a heartbeat. And then there's 2 brand new trains out there. There's a train starting in Saudi Arabia. So it will be the first rail service. It's called Dream of the Desert. And I don't have a lot of details on this, but I think that would be interesting to do. And then there's a train called the Trans-Mongolian Railway, which is an 11-day train from China to Mongolia. So that starts in Beijing on a bullet train to Inner Mongolia. And then you explore all of Mongolia, including the Gobi Desert, some other interesting sites there in Mongolia. That's kind of our train report for this, but lots of new and exciting things when it comes to train travel. I like train travel because it's kind of a laid back way to travel.
Yeah. And you don't have to watch the road.
You don't have to watch the road.
Or the tracks.
Yeah, you get scenery. I kind of like that slower pace of rail travel.
Okay, before we close up shop for the week, let's mention the top 5 cruise deals for this week. This will just be an extension of the infamous Just Cruising segment from last segment. What are the top 5 cruise deals?
So I just wanted to point out on the blueplanetvacations.com under cruise deals, there is a link to the top 5 cruise deals of the week. As I was preparing for the show, I decided to add in these last 2 cruise deals, and I put them at the top of the top 5 cruise deals just because the prices are so good. One is a 7-day Mexican Riviera cruise. This goes November 8th. An inside cabin starts at $699 per person, and a balcony cabin starts at $829 a person.
Wow. What ship is that on? Do you remember?
That is on the Royal Princess, which is one of Princess Cruises' newer ships. And then the next cruise deal I wanted to point out, and this one is a little bit close in, but again, the price point on this is amazing. It's a 7-day Alaska cruise. It's a northbound cruise on Norwegian Cruise Line on the Norwegian Jade, which is one of Norwegian's older ships, but it's also one that I really like. I like the layout of it. I think the ship interior flows really well. This is a cruise that goes from Vancouver to Whittier, stops at Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, Hubbard Glacier, which is one of my favorite glaciers. Departure date is May 12th, so close in.
Yeah, it is.
But an inside cabin starts at $499 per person. Balcony cabin starts at $799 per person.
For Alaska? How many days?
For an Alaska cruise.
7 days?
That's the 7-day northbound cruise.
Holy
May
cow.
12th.
Wow.
So again, both of those, along with about 8 other cruise deals, are on that top 5 cruise deals on the blueplanetvacations.com website. So just in the upper navigation area, click on cruise deals, top 5, and then click on the top 5 cruise deals, and that will come up.
I'm going to give an unsolicited plug. You have no idea I'm going to do this, but I have spent quite a bit of time on blueplanetvacations.com. This is going to sound like a promo piece. It's not. Mark doesn't even know I'm going to say this. I don't know if you've noticed that Patrick has spent a ton of time looking at cruises this week on the site. You probably have noticed a lot of time on the site from,
I haven't.
But, some IP address. It's me.
Yeah.
And I will just simply say that if you know what you're looking for, go to blueplanetvacations.com and then in the right side, just do a cruise search and you can book it online. And it does a phenomenal job explaining the deck plans, what your cruise is, what your room is. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I did book some cruises. Did you get emails that I actually booked them?
I did.
Oh,
yeah.
So
I
you do
saw,
know
saw a reservation come through for you. So
okay. Only one?
No, you've been busy. You've actually booked a few. I saw only one yesterday, but before that, there were two others.
Okay. So that's my point is I was a little bit of self-service there just because I knew that you are in the middle of wave season and I could just do it myself. You and I have not discussed this, but your website in terms of booking cruises is phenomenal. blueplanetvacations.com.
Yeah. And you said that if you know what you're looking for, go there.
But even if you don't
know what you're looking for, you can go to some of the resources like the top 5 cruise deals or just search. You can put in, you want to look for a med cruise. It'll tell you every ship and every cruise line and all of their prices for whatever time period you put in. So
it was phenomenal. And I'm not trying to talk about the website. All I'm saying is that I know how busy you were this week. I'm glad that you got everything then.
Yeah.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. In case I didn't make it clear, go to blueplanetvacations.com for the deals that we have already discussed. But if you have additional questions, and inevitably you will, because even I have had questions, I just happened to have Mark's cell phone, so he was able to respond even though he was incredibly busy. Call him in his office, get the conversation started. There's no obligation. Call him 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717. And thank you so much for listening. You can listen to this show again tomorrow morning, Sunday at 11 a.m., right here on this radio station and around the country. And you can stream, download, and subscribe to the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Mark and I are on all of the major podcast platforms. We've done our job. Now it is your turn to get out and explore the world while you can, because you never know what curveballs life is going to throw at you. As we like to say here, live your life deliberately, live your life intentionally. And again, thank you so much for listening. Have a great week.
That's it. That's the end of the show. You've been listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Book your adventure right now. Call 888-718-7717. That's 888-718-7717. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.